Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 8 of the Live Your Jam podcast. I'm your host, Ellen, and I'm so excited about today's episode. We all know that diet and exercise matter, right? And there is so much information out there about how to stay fit, what we're supposed to be doing. And the global fitness industry is a multi-billion-dollar machine, around $257 million today. But today we're going to be talking about fitness through the lens of the Live Your Jam philosophy, living from the inside out. The episode is all about respecting the vessel that houses your soul. I truly believe that we're all souls having a human experience, so anything that supports this human experience matters. That means tending to our mind, our thoughts, our ego, our inner world, and what today's episode is about is keeping this incredible container we live in, our body, clean and strong. So for me, staying fit and active is an act of self-love. And I'm in my late 50s now. Yikes. And being active and eating clean and taking care of myself is simply my way of life. My guest today is an expert in the fitness industry. He's my personal coach and trainer, and he's the one that is responsible for my keeping me on track with my strength right now. He's been doing this for 15 years. He's a certified strength and conditioning specialist. He's really well known and he knows his stuff. So today we're going to get his take on the best kind of strength training, how much you should actually need to do, how to get started on a budget. And yes, we're going to talk about creatine, collagen, diet, and the mindset it takes to invest yourself in this one body you get in this fantastic lifetime. I'm also going to share how keeping my body clean helps my mind stay clear. And we'll probably talk about too an emotion study because my guest and I talk about a lot. So let me introduce you to my coach, Danny Matranga. Danny, welcome.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to chat.
I am too. I'm excited you're here. We actually already saw each other this morning.
Second time today.
Second time, and lucky me. We've been working out for about 3.5 months now, and I genuinely look forward to every session. Time flies when I train with Danny. Not only has he taught me a lot and helped me, give me a lot of self-confidence, we have solved many of the world's problems together. We've almost tackled every subject out there. And honestly, our dynamic is a little bit big sister, little brother. Wouldn't you say, Danny?
Oh, totally. Yeah, I can feel that vibe. I like the exchange of non-fitness things between my clients and myself. I've always felt super blessed that the people who come to me for fitness can share all the things that they know about, whether it's what they do professionally and their expertise there, what they're into emotionally, what their passions are. I get so much out of the non-fitness conversations. I enjoy our time together for both of those things. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, as do I. I mean, let's face it, I'm old enough to be your mom. And you do have a little bit of that energy too. I'm going to tell everybody the story where periodically I make stuff and bring them to the studio to work. And one time Danny returned a plate that I'd given him with some, I don't know, it was like Rice Krispie treats or peanut butter bars or something on it. And it was dirty. And I'm like, okay, one of my kids would have done that.
Yes. It's such a young male thing to do. And my wife would totally do the opposite. She will like clean a Tupperware 2 or 3 times, put it out in the sun, make it perfect and return it.
I was like, you're not going to live that down. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to kick it off with this first question. In your experience, why is physical health such a powerful foundation for mental and emotional well-being?
Sure. Well, there's like a scientific answer to this that I think most people probably wouldn't understand. And that's that, humans are mammals and all mammals move and they exist in dynamic environments, and that's changed for us so much so recently as a species. We move a lot less. We're in very confined work environments now, and we're not moving enough, and that dysregulates the organism's physiology. Think about your dog and how most dog behaviors can be resolved with exercise. If you have a malbehaving dog, almost all vets will be like, are you getting them enough exercise? And I think for humans, obviously, we're so much more complex than dogs, but our physiology is disrupted by perpetual stillness. And if you make time for exercise, you're making time to be human. You're making time to do what the organism needs to do. And when the machine or the vessel, whatever you want to call it, is doing what it evolved to do, a lot of wonderful things happen downstream from that. So we know about dopamine, and we know about things like endorphin, and we know about the pursuit hormones that we get from exercise, the reward hormones. But obviously, there's so many studies that show we perform better academically and professionally when we exercise. So it's going to benefit you there. It's wonderful for your mental health and mood. I just think it's foundational and inextricable from the mind and the spirit. Like if the body is disrupted, you can't be at true inner harmony, if you will. That sounds way more woo-woo than I meant it to. But I think you get where I'm coming from. And if you looked at it like if the human being were some construction project, then the body is a solid foundation that you build on for your mental and spiritual well-being. And I also would say it's the most accessible. It is not easy to work on your mental health. It's not easy to connect to these other things. It can feel esoteric, but going for a walk or picking up some weights or going on a hike, these things can be accessible and make us feel better almost right away and give us momentum to work on those other areas.
I totally agree. And another thing I'd like to add is like everything's energy. Emotions are energy. So we've got to move. Unless they'll get stuck in the body. So all of that movement is good for us. So
I agree.
yeah, no, I totally appreciate it. It's all connected and it's really important. So sometimes when people, I'm sure you have so many people, have seen so many different types of people, but when I'm working with people and I talk to them about how much they're moving, I'm like, if you just start moving, half of that angst is going to go away.
Totally.
And then you can see what really is down there. And to your point, it needs to be worked on because it's harder to work on the mental and emotional stuff for most of us. Mm-hmm. So
that's a great way to put it. I never really thought about how for most people, whatever fog is cleared by like a good bout of exercise, it only makes finding peace that much easier because you're like, oh, okay, well, with all that angst filtered out, I can actually see what's bothering me and exercise.
What is really here?
It clears the way.
It sure does. So for somebody who wants to feel stronger physically and energetically, what type of strength training is best, do you think?
I think all types of exercise are good. And I think all of the various types of like resistance or strength exercise are probably the best. So, when people think of resistance training or strength training, they often think of weights, weightlifting. I would put machine training, dumbbell training, kettlebell training all into one big basket called lifting. I think Pilates and yoga are a type of strength training, but lesser so, still good. But I think strength training in particular, in a fashion where you are lifting weights, picking up external loads or using machines to lift external loads, and trying to use the full range of motion that your joint has access to at that time, which varies depending on someone's age, orthopedic history. But for most people, if you don't have any injuries, you can train through a pretty full range of motion. If you engage in that full body resistance training, you'll gain a lot of strength, a lot of muscle, a lot of tissue resilience. You see these really impressive hormonal responses in people when they lift weights and train with a lot of weight. And I think that foundationally, the best type of strength training for the majority of people, not everybody, is lifting a few times a week, maybe 2, maybe 3, focusing on the whole body and focusing on not necessarily the most weight, but good execution, good range of motion, and then building up from there. I think the return on that is better than almost any type of exercise.
I have Peloton here and I do that. And there's some classes I was taking that have these little, you lift weights while doing it. And my boys were both like, Mom, you're just kind of wasting your time. And so, I mean, the cardio is good, right? But they're just like nothing, it's kind of a net
yeah,
zero
I would just
doing.
say what's interesting about that exact scenario is it's so tempting to want to combine things, but your focus would be much better off on, if I'm on this bike, I'm doing cardio. And I'm going to disrupt my ability to do that well if I'm doing overhead presses with 3-pound dumbbells. And if I'm like lifting weights, I would never stop in the middle of my like weightlifting session to be like, you know what would make these squats better is if I squatted on a bicycle. So it's like, it's tempting to want to combine these things, but I do think if you let your lifting be its own thing, you can do your cardio however you enjoy. And that might be bike, that might be hike, but there are two pathways of fitness. One of them is aerobic, building the heart, the vessels, the lungs, the mitochondria. The other one is anaerobic, building the bones, the connective tissues, and the muscles. And sometimes combining them, you get the worst of both.
Now that I quit doing the combo classes, like where you lift arms and weights, and I just like haul ass on my cardio, and then I just do the weights separately. That's been a helpful change for me. So I appreciate that kind of new, change in my understanding. So you already said it, like 2 to 3 times a week for most people to begin and start out. Like, how many days a week do you lift?
I'm more experienced with weightlifting. So in order to keep making meaningful progress, which is something that somebody like myself in fitness is going to be more focused on, like the refined elements of their physique or their strength. And it is kind of neurotic and it's a little self-absorbed. I get it. But like I'll lift weights like 5 days a week, sometimes 6. There are so many days where the weightlifting experience is probably as much for my mental health and my movement as it is for the progression towards a physical or performance goal. But I will say that there is a massive diminishing marginal return with resistance training. And for most adults, 2 or 3 sessions a week offers them 75 to 80% of the benefits of being a lifter, and adding a 4th session, a 5th session, a 6th session, the return on each of those is very small. And it's, it would be like most people say, I don't want this to be my whole life. I just want to get really good results. I want to be strong. I want to be healthy. And one of the cool things about lifting is you can like, oh my gosh, okay, well, then you don't actually have to lift nearly as much as the people who you look at and say, oh, well, that's, that bodybuilder, that I'm never going to do that. Dude, you don't have to. You do not have to. Like, really, it is unbelievable how 2 or 3 sessions, if you train the whole body, can get you 80% of what 5 or 6 really granular, precise sessions where you're just hitting 1 or 2 muscle groups can get you. But I do tend to enjoy my training and like to get lost in the challenge of it. And so 5-6 days a week.
Yeah, no, good. I think that's great. I think what I heard is like for most 2 to 3 gets 80% of it done. And I tend to like the 80-20 rule of life in general. So no, I think that's a great kind of just for people to understand that 2 to 3 days a week will get you done what you need to get done. And I know it depends on your goal. Most people at my age are looking to stay fit and to stay strong and not to lose muscle. I feel like after 50, I know people can always bounce back, but you really just need to continue to stay strong and work on it. So for someone just starting out, kind of same thing, 2 to 3 times a week. But if you're on a budget or you don't have a gym, like what do you recommend for folks?
One of the things that I do think is cool about strength training / resistance training is, I just hyped up how I would use external weights when possible. It doesn't mean that the forms of resistance training that use body weight or maybe more affordable, accessible modalities are bad. They're just a little less efficient. But if you have just body weight or like coordination and control of your body, things like air squats, split squats, walking lunges, push-ups, chin-ups, pull-ups, planks, side planks, hip thrusts or bridges, these are all exercises that, again, they train large muscles through a full range of motion, and they're what we call compound movements. So you get multiple different muscles done at once. That is the type of efficiency you want. That's like the index fund of the weight room. Like, oh, wow, I do the squat and I get my abs, my glutes, my quads, my
Yeah.
hamstrings, my
Yeah.
calves. Yeah, that's going to be better than if I do one at a time, and that'll take forever. So if you're on a budget, you might not have as much sophistication in your equipment. You can do body weight. If you want to add something to that, I'd say the next thing to add is 2 sets of dumbbells, one that's light, like probably for most people between 5 and 10 pounds, and one that's more moderate, probably a pair that's between 20 and 30 pounds. The 5 to 10s will allow you to do things like shoulder raises, bicep curls, direct tricep work, some of your lighter lunges. The heavier dumbbells will work well for rows, presses, squats, and deadlifts. And that's like, okay, I bought 2 dumbbells at Target for $100, 2 sets, and you're adding to that body weight, you're off and running. There's a piece of equipment called a suspension trainer, which is basically just 2 straps that hang from a door. You can get those on Amazon for between $100 and $200, and they let you do all kinds of stuff using body weight. So if you're wanting to do it in a minimalist or like maximally affordable way, become very comfortable with body weight strength training, and you'll make tremendous progress. Especially if you're brand new, you'll make great progress from most types of training.
Yeah, that's excellent. Thank you. I mean, really good specific advice there on what people can start with and how. I think the thing that came to my mind as I was listening is like the really important factor there is form.
Yeah, form and intensity are the 2 things that I think everybody needs to have in mind. It's like, am I doing the exercise through the range of motion required and in the positioning required to actually train what I'm trying to train? If I'm here to train my upper back, am I in the machine the right way? Am I facing the right direction? Is my grip good? Is the height of the cable such, and those are the elements of the gym that intimidate people. And form and setting things up is important. And for people like you who are high performers and they want to get the most out of the stuff that they do, they tend to be like, I want a trainer to set things up so I can just apply effort. I want to show up and apply effort. And high performers are usually like high effort people. And so it is pretty funny when you set some of these people up, even if they've never trained before, they're very good at the second most important thing, which is effort and pushing close to failure. And, one thing about training at the gym is if you say to somebody like, hey, I want you to do 3 sets of 10, they'll pick a weight that they can do 10 reps with comfortably. And a lot of people will just perpetually go back to the gym and identify weights that they can do comfortably and reps that they can do comfortably, and they'll do what's comfortable. And that will be healthy for you. It will be good for your mental health, but it will limit your progress. Somebody who's pushing hard, and maybe they're thinking, I'm going to do 10 of these, but if I get to 10 and it's easy, I'm not going to stop until I have like maybe 1 rep left. People who know it's okay to keep going, to push a little further, to try to get close to failure. Like something that showed up in our session today, you asked if at the end of one of our sets of like 12 tricep extensions, you could do a drop set where we drop the weight 30% after you hit the end of the set, and you actually keep performing repetitions. So if you're listening to this, just imagine you're doing like bicep curls, you're curling dumbbells, and you get to a point where you can't do any more with say 20s, and you put those down, and then you grab 12 and a halves and you keep going. That second layer of push is actually helpful because it's one thing to work out. It's another thing to work out hard enough to make progress. And I think progress is addicting. And I think that effort is actually satisfying for people. And so if you can carve out a part of your life where effort is actually the thing you're chasing, discomfort is almost the pursuit, and it drives progress. You're like, no, that's what this place is for. That's what this time is for. That's what this workout is for. I'm not going to bitch about this discomfort. I'll bitch about the other discomforts in my life, but this is voluntary. I'm going to lean into it. That can make your training very effective. And if you give a shit about your form and you give a shit about your effort, resistance training is about as safe and high reward as you can, as form of exercise there is.
When you talked about the drop set, I was like, we haven't discussed this. That's exactly my philosophy. It's sort of is if I'm there to give the amount of effort and for you to kind of push me to that. And so if myself, if I'm at the gym, I can just see myself doing like,
What's comfortable, sure.
what's comfortable. And because I really appreciate that. And I never even heard of a drop set before I started working with you. And it's so satisfying. It's not easy, but it's so satisfying. I can tell, like, I'm like, I just did something hard there.
Well, that's one of the things that I find particularly rewarding about resistance training and why I would encourage it for people. If exercise consistency is not your thing, or you're looking for something that like, you're like, fuck, I'm not an exercise person, but I know I need to do it. When you do something like go for a run, sometimes the like whole body discomfort, the huffing and puffing, the feet hurting, the shin splints, maybe you're a heavier person, a lot of people are heavier, and you just end that exercise session like, oh man, that killed me. I feel shitty. And with weight training, it's like not as bad when your triceps are screaming for mercy, but like the rest of your body's okay, and you can like shake it off and be like, whoa, damn. That really cooked that one part of my body. And yeah, that was uncomfortable, but I'm not physically miserable. And then the next day you're like, oh, damn, it's sore there. And you're like poking on it. You're kind of feeling it. I do not attempt to understand why that is as satisfying as it is for people, and why like the physical exhaustion after a run isn't so much. But I really like that in resistance training, you can pursue physical discomfort at the level of an individual muscle. And that makes it more palatable for people who are like, I don't want to feel dead. I don't want to be exhausted when I'm done. I'm actually talking about people who are like a 180 from you. They're a non-exerciser. They might like the fact that you could say, hey, come in and we're going to do this tricep extension one set, one time. And you're going to feel it right there. It's going to burn, and then you'll be done. And that'll actually be effective. And then we can move on to something else, but it allows you to spread and isolate the suffering a little bit. And I think a lot of people associate exercise, which is suffering and misery from start to finish. Weight training is really versatile and adaptable, and it can be minimally shitty.
I totally get that. I mean, like people on hikes, I mean, it takes a long time to work up to certain elevations at certain paces, and they're long. And with weight training, like you can get a lot done in a short amount of time. And certainly you can push yourself. I totally get that. I think most people are intimidated by it. I think there's enough out there on the internet on form and kind of how you can start. There's certainly enough information, and people could start small, like you're saying. Let's switch gears just a little bit. I want to talk about the two things that I lived in Europe, and there's so many fads in the US, and over there I found, I mean, I can't speak, there's lots of different approaches in Europe, lots of countries on that continent, but most things are simpler, quite frankly. In the US, where we came back, everybody's eating protein, I mean, it's like the fad and the commercialism of everything. But there are two things that you and I have discussed that I've included in my diet, and that one is creatine and the other one's collagen. And those two things I can do, but like, why should we take creatine, and why and how should we take both creatine and collagen? I know they're different, but if you can just kind of explain to people.
I'll give you the upside for creatine first, because I think it's bigger and it's more evidence-based. And then for collagen, I'll give you what I think would be the speculative upside and why I like it for some people. With creatine, of all the supplements that have been studied for ergogenic aid, which is just a fancy way of saying improving sports performance, creatine is the most studied, with the longest kind of track record of no real standout issues for any healthy population. So we've been studying it for over 100 years. Nobody's really at risk with it. Almost only upside in the literature. And like that's actually really positive. You don't see that all the time where you see a really high safety profile. And so it's like, okay, so it checks the safety profile box. If you have like liver problems or kidney problems, you shouldn't take creatine. But if you have liver and kidney problems, you shouldn't take any supplements at all, right? So it's like very safe. The second thing that's really cool about creatine is it's a non-hormonal amino acid based strength enhancing agent. And like most people, if they want to get a little stronger and perform better, they think of something like steroids and they're like, oh, is this like hormonal? Creatine is just 3 amino acids bound together. Your body makes it naturally. It just doesn't make enough to support high volumes of strength training for most people. If you wanted to benefit from your strength training more, supplementing with creatine makes a lot of sense. But now we know that about 10% of the creatine in your body, up to 10%, could be stored in the brain. And we use it for all kinds of cognitive stuff. And because it has a high safety profile and everybody's interested in healthy aging and cognition, there's really no downside to adding it in for non-resistance trainers. Just for the cognitive, just for the cognitive support, just protect your brain against aging and loss of cognitive function. It's becoming more of a, not a buzzword, but it's just more of a cultural focus. And brain health matters. And a lot of that stuff is just, there's so much shit out there.
Yeah,
there is. Does not work. Creatine's definitely worth taking, and the dosages are manageable at like 2 to 5 grams a day for daily use, and it's so cheap, very affordable. And the only form you need to take is a form called creatine monohydrate. Other designer forms of creatine are marketed, but they're not particularly better. You want to take it consistently. There's some data, for example, on actually sleep deprivation, where if you take 20 grams of creatine, which is way more than you need every day, you can get an acute reduction in the symptoms of sleep deprivation. So you can like spike your creatine use for specific outcomes, but you usually want to aim for a daily dose of 3 to 5 grams. If you miss it, just jump on it the next day. But you think of it kind of like a vitamin.
Cool. What about collagen? I think you recommend it for joints, aging, and recovery.
Yeah,
That's kind of what I
like
see
it. I like it a lot for joints. I think it's limited in its upside for things like skin and hair. I think it helps, but I think it's like it's like the beauty industry overinflates upside. But there's actually some really cool benefits for soft tissue and things like tendon and ligament. And those tissues are comprised of different proteins than our muscles. And even though anytime you eat a protein, you break it down into all these amino acids and then you can send them wherever. If you eat a protein like collagen that is high in the amino acids that are used in gut lining, in joint tissue, in skin and hair, and you're already eating protein from different sources, collagen can be effective. I don't supplement with collagen, but I eat like a ton of bone broth, whether it's like a homemade broth or something which is loaded with collagenous protein. Yeah. And that gives my body different materials than something like a steak. And I do think that for people who want to get maybe a little upside with skin, a little upside with hair, a little upside with things like nail growth, and obviously soft tissues like the gut and joints, collagen has a really good safety profile. So does something like whey protein. Whey protein's fine too, but whey protein is higher in leucine, which is more of an anabolic trigger, a muscle growth trigger. So if you want to max out your muscle growth, don't worry about collagen. Go for the whey. If you want to have some upside for aging and skin and you already get enough protein in your diet, add some collagen. If you care about both, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. But you don't need a ton of supplements. In fact, those are like 2 out of the 3 or 4 I would recommend for most people.
Yeah, so that's what I've been kind of doing because I don't want to get into overwhelm and get into all these
less
supplement.
is more. Less is more.
And you and I have very similar views on nutrition. I mean, I know I'm going to put all your information in and send people to your website, and you've got a lot of good free resources there. But there's so much nutrition noise out there. And
Totally.
you and I have talked about eating clean. And so, I mean, what does it really mean in a practical sense? I mean, I'd like you to kind of touch on alcohol too. You don't drink alcohol, I drink very little. Simply, what does eating clean mean in a practical sense to you?
Okay, yeah, I'll give you the best answer I can think of off the top of my head. And I think eating clean, eating healthy, eating a nutrient dense diet, nourishing your body can paralyze people. It can lead to a ton of fear and being like, "Oh my god, I'm worried about this and that and that and this." And what really works well for me is what are the big high leverage things I want to eat more of that are going to make the biggest difference? Again, 80-20 rule. What are the 20% of foods that are going to give me 80% of the benefit? And then I want to do the same thing on the inverse. What are the things that I should avoid that have the greatest negative outcomes on my health? And like, let me focus on the big stuff. Give me 2 or 3 things that I should be eating and 2 or 3 things that I should be saying no to. And then a lot of that noise becomes completely unimportant. It doesn't matter anymore because my diet is on a strong track with good foundation. I'm going to give you 3 and 3. 3 things you want to eat more of. Protein, not necessarily these protein products that they're throwing in your face at the grocery store, but like foods that naturally contain protein: beef, chicken, fish, yogurt, tofu, tempeh. You can do it vegan, you can do it vegetarian, you can do it pescatarian, you can go full carnivore, but make sure you get a good amount of protein in your diet to fuel your muscle and to keep you full. Obesity is the number one issue in the entire United States, I'd say, when it comes to overall health. And a lot of that's due to being hungry all the time. Protein helps with that. The second thing I would focus on is eat more fiber. 91% of adults don't eat enough fiber, and that's basically fixable with fruits and vegetables, which it's funny. If you don't eat enough fiber and then you start eating more fruits and vegetables to get enough fiber, you also get all your vitamin A, all your vitamin C, all your vitamin E, all of your manganese, all of your copper, and all of a sudden, all your vitamin and mineral goals for the day, they're met. It's like, why, dude, why are you worried about fucking vitamin C? You're not hitting your fiber. It's almost impossible to hit your fiber and not hit your vitamin C. And the last one I would say is water. Actually drink water. Most people don't. On the what do I want to cut out side, because I'm more of an additive person than like a negative person, I would only want to make 1 or 2 concessions. And the number one thing most people consume that has really no upside is alcohol. It's just really bad for your health and it's loaded with calories. It makes food decisions harder. So choosing to do that in moderation or not do that at all has tons of upside. Other options are things like fast food, ultra processed junk foods. Those are things that if you can do those in moderation or not at all, your health is going to change markedly.
That's pretty much my philosophy. What you kind of nailed it right there is, I tend to stay in the whole foods kind of arena and try not to
Yep.
eat a lot of processed food. I also, I've talked about it, like I don't wig out if it's out of my control. I just still try to make good choices and again, do the
Totally.
80-20. But if it's up to me, I'm choosing the good thing,
Yeah,
And
and
so,
healthy people do this terrible thing to themselves where once they've like made the decision to be healthy most of the time, they don't allow themselves to ever be unhealthy anytime. And it's like, dude, what is the point of being strong and fit and healthy if you can't eat something good? And
right.
like, what?
Exactly.
That's not
Or something,
healthy.
yeah, no, the rigidity around it. Like
Yeah,
you can eat
yeah.
something naughty, period. And like, again, 80-20. That's really good. That's great advice for people. I mean, one thing I want to say is, I want to talk about mindset here because, as I said in the beginning, my investment in working with you and doing this kind of work, I've always cardio been pretty fit, but like now on this strength training it's really an act of love. Like I'm proud of myself for being like, I'm going to invest in this in a way that makes me feel comfortable. Your gym is amazing. Brandon and Holden are amazing as well. And I don't know the physical therapy guy. What's his name?
That's
Jeff,
Brandon.
him.
Matt,
Yeah.
Holden,
Okay.
Brandon.
Wait. Matt. Oh my God. I totally Matt. I meant. Yeah. Matt and Holden are the two that I know better. But you guys are just really professional and also fun and helpful. And the gym is clean, and so I really enjoy going there. Gyms kind of creep me out. I don't like smells. Now I haven't used your bathroom, and I probably never will. But one of the things is my mindset is this is an act of self-love and self-care. And so what mindset do you think, or what have you seen with your clients that people need to have to build a consistent fitness habit and truly invest in themselves?
I think that one works really well. The attitude of investment. Like every workout is a deposit in the bank of my future, and my account is compounding every day. And these workouts are worth something today, but they're worth so much more tomorrow. And like that type of mentality or that framing is super helpful for certain people. Like for you and I, that can work really well because I'm like, ooh, I like the sound of that. I get a benefit today. I get a benefit tomorrow. Phenomenal. I can frame this challenging thing as worthy of my time. Let's do it. Other people, I have one client, one of my most consistent clients, and she's got a pretty good mentality about most things. She's pretty optimistic. But if you ask her why she strength trains, she's like, I am terrified of not being able to take care of myself. It is 100% a fear thing. I kind of enjoy it, but I am very afraid. And I will tell you what, I would rather do this and fight that fear than, embrace aging and losing my independence. Hey, you know what? For me, that's a little dark, but for that person, the mindset of fighting decline and fighting entropy and, I watched my mom suffer from this. I watched my so-and-so suffer from that. That can be really powerful. Connect with the people in your lineage or your life who have not cared for themselves and ask yourself, are you down for that same fate? And if not, run from it, run from the generational trauma, if you want to call it that. But fear works. I think it's a slippery slope, but for some people, the mentality of what is the alternative is really powerful. But those are kind of the two framings I like. The additive frame of this is for my future self and I'm doing it, or the future me is fucked if I don't.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I think I get fear is a good motivator. I would just say to your one client, she should listen to episode 7 and the episode that's going to air after this, episode 9. It's how your mind can be your ally and not a dictator. But I do think fear is a good motivator. We just can't let it control us. But nonetheless, I mean, not going to try to analyze that one. But I get it because I said in the beginning, there's something in my mind. I haven't spent that much time trying to analyze it. Like when you get to 50 years old, there's just something about, you've got to make this body work. I think you get away with stuff when you're younger, it's
Totally.
like, and the body is very resilient. And as we age, it's just not this. I don't eat a third of what I used to eat. I don't barely drink anything, like it's just not as resilient. And so I'm investing in this thing has gotten me so far and allowed me to have 2 healthy kids and all this kind of stuff. So I get it. I see it as an act of love. I think specifically because just in terms of some of our audience here, what do women over 50 need to know about training as they age? Like because that's got to be a big part of your clientele. I know I am. And
most of my clients are women, and they're women over 50, women in perimenopause. And I one of the things that I think is so cool is like, if you went to the lab and said like, this is what happens to the female body when it ages. The bones seem to atrophy. The muscles seem to lose their strength and tonicity. It looks like their skin and hair aren't as vibrant as they used to be. So there's like some protein degradation occurring. These sex hormones, they're misbehaving and they're all over the place. We need something that you could do multiple times a week or every day that has like a therapeutic effect on this shit. And it's like, oh, weird, because weightlifting, which is thought of as like bro
Yeah,
city,
totally.
is
I think as well as
somehow
gym.
like the ultimate antidote for what
Yeah.
happens to female physiology
Who
throughout the
knew?
A. And
Yeah.
I don't say that as somebody who postures as like a menopause expert, although I do laugh. I spend more time with women in perimenopause than most people. If there was a super secret special trick, I'd tell you. What's honestly really cool is it's still consistency. It's still about making it a self-loving journey. But I really think a lot of the problems that women face physiologically as they age, those can be really dampened with resistance training specifically. It's almost like it was made to make the
No, it's
symptoms of
the
menopause.
antidote.
It's not a panacea, but it seems like it's a really great form of exercise. And
Yeah.
again, it's
Yeah.
like the generation of women who are now going through perimenopause and their moms were kind of not encouraged to be in the weight room because it was seen as more macho.
Yeah.
But I think
Well, it was intimidating, stinky, and weird, like when we were growing up. And
totally.
then CrossFit came out. I personally don't want to roll a tire anywhere. I mean, but whatever. I mean, the experience at your gym is kind of it meets my lady needs. Like it's clean,
Yeah, yeah.
and you guys are young and you play rap music, so that keeps me a little bit hip. You know, always like today Rihanna was on, but so no, it's a good vibe in there, and we kind of all bro out together in our own kind of way and respecting where everybody's coming from.
We do.
So I get it. It's a good vibe for me. And my friend Steph went there too. We didn't know that each other were going there. She went there for PT, and she said the exact same thing. So, and Steph and I,
The vibe is important when you find your space or your community. Those things help. If you're looking to make exercise part of your life, if you can find a good vibe and a good community, it makes it even easier.
yeah. Well, I'm talking like, you know, for middle-aged women, it's like we kind of have some criteria here. And I know that you have a lot of other big sisters that you're talking to and potential mother figures at
Potentially.
work.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So we're gonna end on a question that's about, you know, live your jam. Being a fitness expert and coach and conditioning expert is clearly your jam. Like you're all about this kind of stuff. It's your zone of purpose, and that may shift and change into other things. But right now, I mean, I can tell like you love this stuff and you're incredibly knowledgeable. So can you share how this work became meaningful for you? And how does helping people grow stronger feel like you are making the world a better place?
Well, I mean, when I first got started doing this job, I actually was not getting paid to really train people. I had to stand up at the front desk and offer to train people for free in order to hopefully allow them to see that like, oh shoot, form and effort matter. Maybe I should hire a trainer. And so if you had to do the work you did for free over and over and over and over again when you're 18, 19, 20, 21 years old to like maybe put some food on your table, you eventually have to like shift your mindset to being like, I'm going to help this person. Whatever happens, happens. And so like from the very beginning of doing this professionally, I had to just basically take every interaction as like, I got to help this person and just try to find a way to make, they're like, oh shoot, this person said that I could show them how to use that machine. Perfect. And what's cool about this job is you can tell somebody like one thing and it can be really helpful. And what made this job enjoyable for me or what made this job feel meaningful for me was almost every person I interacted with, even if I never had them as a client, the exchange is almost always positive. And I don't know too many jobs where every time you interact with the general public, it's going to be mostly positive. And they're going to be like, oh, thanks, dude. I'm glad you showed me that. And enough of that went by when I was young and I built some confidence. I was like, this makes a difference. Helping people is cool. And then when I started to get clients, people would just tell me like, hey, this totally changes my life. Like I feel so much better, XYZ. And I was like, holy crap, that is super rewarding. And again, I'm kind of spoiled because my job allows that. And I think my work feels meaningful because the effort that the people I work with bring is meaningful to them, and their results make them happy, and them being happy makes me happy. And that's the structure of my job. It's so strange, but I'm lucky I found it because it's a very giving, positive circle.
Yeah. No, good. That's awesome. I've never asked you that question, so it's good.
Yeah, it's cool
It's
like to hear you talk about how you feel good about it and how that's meaningful. And I'm like, well, I know what it does for your body. I went to
yeah,
school for the ways exercise
yeah,
benefits the body. And like, I think anybody would be foolish for not exercising given how good it is for you. But when people tell you how good it makes them feel, or how much they can still do, or what they can do that they used to not be able to
yeah,
do,
yeah.
it's like,
And how
holy
proud of
shit.
themselves. Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, you feel good for them. And that almost feels better than feeling good for yourself. Being in a position every day where you can be happy for someone else. Like, oh shit, that's cool.
Yeah, no, I can relate to that with my coaching clients. It's sort of what the gift is my supporting, their happiness and goals. And so that is incredibly rewarding. It's actually a key concept of Live Your Jam is like once we work on the inside and what matters to us, we automatically go and share that in the world. And so that's why I talk about people living from the inside out, because I think the more work we do on ourselves, then we can find kind of what lights us up. And the minute you find what lights you up, you'll go out and share it with other people. And it doesn't have to be, it's a journey. Like it can be like my thing has shifted and changed from consulting and coaching to systems. And now I'm doing this work, but I was still helping. Like there's a thread that goes through it all. And so, yeah, no, hats off and congratulations on just all your success and also just being a super easy dude to work with and a good little bro.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for having me on. And thanks for the great questions. And yeah, thanks for your effort when you come and see me and your effort today. I think it's all good and fun. And I'm so fortunate to be able to help you with the exercise. It's hella cool.
I feel the same. So thanks for being on. And we'll put all of Danny's information in the description box on YouTube and we'll get it all out there to everybody. So make sure that you could take a look at YouTube so you can find out what he posts a lot of really good content. He's got a lot of really good free stuff and his Instagram. I'm not on TikTok. Are you on TikTok
No,
too? Yeah, but
no.
his Instagram is funny. He is really good at producing interactive and informational, but also you'll get a little bit of Danny sass. So thank you for coming, and I really appreciate your time and doing this with me.
Thanks for having me.